Oh, here's an oldie but goodie. I was going to read one a little bit older. This one is from July 23rd, 2015 by Janet Bloomfield, aka JG Bitch. I actually was going to read another one, but I was listening to parts of Renaissance Woman video, and I guess one of the people in the chat room, one of the women in the chat room actually talked about the men on the panel having mommy issues. And the men jumped all over and said, yes, I guess you could say that we have mommy issues because we were raised by black women. And the issues that we have come from being raised by black women. So by definition, we do have mommy issues. So it reminded me of a video, not a video, but a post I actually looked at, back in 2015. And then Janet Bloomfield actually put this out, and basically she got caught a lot of flack for this one. There's two that she caught a flack for. One was another one about black women being the servants of basically the servants of white women, of white feminists. Caught flack for that one a year before, but this one she really caught a lot of flack for. And I recently talked about this in a video I put up about, I think it was Black Neo, You're a Slave. But it's something that I've been talking about for quite some time, about how black women raise black boys and how the black community actually raises black boys. And it's something that Moynihan talked about it back 50 years ago. Frazier talked about it some almost 100 years ago. And basically back in 1890, Du Bois talked about it in the Philadelphia Negro, something similar, very similar to this. This is nothing new. But in honor of that young lady saying that we have mommy issues and railing on it for about an hour or so, I'm going to agree with her. We do have mommy issues. And this article, or this blog post, actually talks about why, because it did actually come from a study. It actually mentioned the study. And I constantly get emails from people asking me to actually email a study. I probably should have put the study in the doggone video. I might go back and do that because I constantly get emails about where the study actually came from. But anyway, on to the blog post without further ado. Black men are failing catastrophically. Are black mothers to blame? And it's like it says, July 23rd, 2015 by Janet Bloomfield. Remember when I wrote an article showing that researching racial differences in IQ is not axiomatically racist? That article got quite a bit of traffic and still does. And it amazes me how many people failed and continue to fail to get the point. I posited that nutritional differences explain differences in IQ between white and black Americans, not because I think nutritional differences do account for the IQ gap, but rather to demonstrate that any subject, including race and IQ, can be researched without being automatically and irrevocably racist. A new study has been published that offers a new explanation for the enormous achievement gaps between white and black boys and men. It turns out that when black boys are raised by one group of women, the achievement gap disappears. So there goes the genetic basis for IQ differences argument. What group of women magically erases the poor educational, employment, and economic outcomes for typical black men and boys? Get ready for some epic screaming. White women. Black boys raised by white women do just as well as white children raised by white women. Controlling for variables like socioeconomic status, education, income, etc. And of course, the big question is why. There are a couple of theories the researchers measuring this phenomenon posit. Some are simple and some are much more complex. Black boys raised by white mothers tend to have distinctively white rather than black speech patterns. Barack Obama, anybody? He sure is articulate for a black guy, snark. Those speech patterns allow black boys to avoid a wage penalty as men. White mothers have an entirely different approach to education, teachers, and the school system, and are treated differently by the school system, no matter what race their children are. This clearly has an impact on the outcomes for children. White mothers are more likely to be married and raising children with a father present, which has all kinds of benefits for children. I want to flip the question over and ask, rather than what are white women doing right and what advantages do they have, to what are black women doing wrong and why are they doing it wrong? What the hell do I know about how and why black women raise their children the way they do? From personal experience, obviously fuck all. But I don't subscribe to standpoint epistemology, a feminist theory that claims you can only really know your own experience. And attempting to understand another person's experience is racist and supremacist. Bullshit. There are things called books that anyone can read. Amazing how much a book written by a person who has a particular experience or spent a lot of time thinking about a particular experience can convey. The book that came to mind was Melissa Harris Perry, Sister Citizen, Shame, Stereotypes, and Black Women in America. In that book, Harris Perry spends a lot of time talking about how the myth of the strong black woman impacts the daily lives of black women and how much they feel they need to live up to this deeply damaging stereotype. In this myth is ground zero and the major difference between white and black mothers. It's the reason black women do a shit job with their sons. Let's go back to the 1960s and consider two families on the verge of true prosperity, one white, one black. They live in a town somewhere in the southern states where the majority industry is, let's say, furniture making. Both families consist of a mother, father, and 3 children. Both are renting properties and saving for a down payment on a home. The white guy, let's call him Chuck, works at one of the local furniture plants full-time and is a finisher. He is covered by a collective agreement that includes severance, vacation pay, retraining, and a top-up for unemployment insurance. The black guy, let's call him Anthony, cobbles together 40 hours a week, working as a janitor at 3 different plants, all part-time. He's not covered by the union. Both men are getting by, setting aside a little each week to make that down payment on the white picket house of their dreams, taking care of the children and wife, and generally feeling pretty good about themselves. The U.S. government approves cheap imports of Canadian lumber, and all 3 furniture plants are suddenly facing serious competition from plants close to the Canadian border. Within a year, all 3 are in receivership and bought out by the competition, who is moving all positions to the north. Full-time employees are offered positions at the new parent factory. Chuck now gets to decide whether to move the whole family to New Hampshire, take advantage of retraining options. He doesn't need to touch the money he saved for a down payment. He can take it with him. Anthony is not a full-time employee and is not offered a transfer. He is not a skilled employee anyways. He has no severance and no retraining options and no reasonable option of a comparable employment in the area. His wife cobbles together a few part-time jobs and he gets a few handyman and cleanup gigs here and there, and both work their asses off, but it doesn't take long before their down payment is gone and they're in serious need of assistance. They apply for welfare and are approved, but it comes with a condition. Anthony cannot live in the same home as his wife and children. This is obviously a materially different circumstance than slave families being sold away from one another. But is it an emotionally different circumstance? I don't think it takes a person with superhuman empathy to see this is a devastating choice. Your husband or your children, pick one. This was a reality for millions of black families. When the recession hit in the 1970s, no welfare for families with men in the home. This wasn't something that applied to just black families, but it hit them the hardest and effectively destroyed the black nuclear family and by extension, black prosperity and community. So now we have black women in economically precarious situations owing to a policy that reeks of one of the most destructive legacies of slavery, ripping families apart for cruel sport, raising children alone. How easy would it be to take the resentment that ought to be directed against the policy and aim it instead at the man who is not allowed by law to support you? How easy would it be to turn that resentment into fury and outright hate? How easy would it be to decide, I don't need no man anyways, they can all go straight to hell? Pretty easy, apparently. Yeah, well, pretty easy. In fact, they've been doing it for like 100 years. It's not new. Black mothers raise girls who can go on to educational, economic, and employment achievements far more frequently than they raise boys who do the same. If it were a matter these women are just dumb, there shouldn't be any demonstrable difference between the outcomes of boys and girls, but there is. Black women hate men, and by extension hate their sons. They resent them, and in all likelihood they visit far more abuse, both physical and emotional, upon them, for reasons they have to do with structural, policy-driven government decisions that black men sure as hell didn't vote for, approve of, or ask for. Harris Perry makes a compelling case that no matter what the culture has thrown at black women, they soldier on. They keep going, and they try to keep their heads up. But underwriting her understandable pride in the tenacity and endurance of black women is an undercurrent that acknowledges that the fact that black women are forced to raise children alone is both tragic and heinous. The eradication of black men from the everyday lives of black women and children is a heartbreaking legacy of Jim Crow and welfare reform laws. There's nothing good, strong, or empowering about it. Enter feminism. Dun, dun, dun. Feminists are engaged in an all-out war against families, including black families. Feminists convince black women that struggling to raise children without the love and support and companionship of man is a badge of honor. Not all, but most. It is a sign of strength, courage, bravery, valor. It's all rah, 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 you go, girl. If something in your life sucks, blame it on the man, and that includes black men. Is it any wonder that black women resent and hate their sons? Is it any wonder they raise thugs and gangsters? Not all, but a lot. Give those exact same boys to white women who have been taught to a much, much lesser extent that they don't need no man. And those boys become accountants and neurosurgeons and teachers and HVAC technicians and entrepreneurs. Feminists try hard to make all women hate men and blame men for their own personal choices. But this message hasn't stuck well with white women in general because it wasn't backed up with widespread institutional racism and discrimination that prevented white men from supporting their white wives and children. Feminism's greatest triumph has been with black women. And the fact that black women can't raise their boys to success, but white women can, tells you all you need to know about the incredibly destructiveness of feminism. I've said it before, but it's worth saying again. Black women who think white women have their best interests at heart are insane. Rich, pampered white women whose biggest problem is who will pay their $6 birth control bill, and guys who sit comfortably on the subway will never care more about you than your husbands, sons, brothers, fathers, uncles, nephews, neighbors, and all the men in your communities will. White women raise black boys better than you do. Black women, that should make you want to puke. It should make you crazy angry. It should make you want to scream and punch something and cry. You can't blame all of it on racism and feminism, although those things play a huge role. It starts with you and your relationship to your sons and their fathers. Stop hating them, start loving them. Understand that you have years and years of hate, egged on by feminism to overcome. Black men need to trust you again. Give them a reason to do so. Said lots of love, Judy. A lot of times when we talk about, and when I've talked on panels with women, and we talked about getting women to help fix the black community, and we're going back and forth about men, the first thing I always say, the hell with men. The hell with grown men. The hell with getting along with your grown men. Work on your sons. I've heard many of women, grown women, talk about how they were raised, especially if they had brothers. And the first thing the black women will say, most of them, not all, most of them, will say how hard that they thought that their mother was on them rather than their brother. How much they made them do the right things and study and go to school and get good grades and didn't do that for their brother. They let their brother slide. They let their brother get away with stuff. They let their brothers run the streets. They let their brothers stay out. They were very, very strict on them, on the girls. They were always stricter on the girls. And the girls always thought that was unfair. But you fast forward 10 to 15 years, the girl's out on her own. She's got a degree. She's got a decent job. And basically, the little boy who became a man is either struggling, or he's become a homosexual. He's living with women, trying to get along, didn't get a degree, barely passed high school, can barely get a job. And he's being passed from woman to woman who's taking care of him. And I hear a lot of guys that talk about that they made it in spite of their mother, not because of it. I can't tell you how many men actually said that. And in case you don't believe what I'm saying, and it doesn't matter to you what I'm saying or anything else like that, over the past 2 generations, black women have basically been the most educated group in the black community. In fact, they've always been the most educated group in the black community. And the vast majority of children, like over 90%, are raised by their mothers, not their fathers, by their mothers. Now, if 90% of the children and 90% of the boys are raised by their fathers, I could understand. The blame should go on the father. But if the most educated group in the black community are women, and women are actually raising the children till they're 18, especially the boys, ergo, the boys, over time, as women got more educated, should be more educated themselves. In other words, the little boys and the little girls should do almost exactly the same as far as grades. Unfortunately, that is not the case. And in fact, the study that she was quoting shows that there's a 15 to 20% IQ gap between white boys and black boys. But that gap either disappears or narrows to within 4 IQ points when that same little black boy is raised by a white woman. Now, you can't use IQ as a marker, because it really will actually kick my ass if I tried to. But IQ is just one part. If you look at grades and outcomes and jobs, like Judy was saying, as the study shows, it shows the same thing. There's virtually no difference between a white man and a black man as far as outcome. He gets the same grades as the white boy. He gets almost the same money as a white boy. He gets the same educational outlook as the white boy. Virtually the same. In fact, the study says the biggest indicator of success for the boy was the mother that he's raised by. The biggest difference in outcome of the boy was the mother that he was raised by. I can't tell you, I can only tell you who's at the bottom. Enough said. Not all, but sure as hell more than there should be. Like I said, if they're raised by the men who are the least educated of the group, then it would be understood that you would raise the education of the group that's trying to educate the kids. But the most educated of the group are actually raising the bulk of the children. Now, you could say that it's because most black women don't have mates. They're raised by single parents, which is only partially true. What they found out is that single parent white women raise kids virtually the same as, not virtually, but I'm saying almost the same as what? White boys in their class. So in other words, a single parent white boy raised will be the same as a single parent black boy raised, if depending on the mother. White woman's gonna raise them the same. The white woman's gonna push education more than the black woman will. And as a side note, guess what they found out? I had to go back and find the study. I'm just gonna say that I've seen this, but don't quote me on it because I'd have to go back and find it. What they find out is that pound for pound, black men raise better kids than black women with better outcome. but sample size is not as large. So the thing is, only black men only get their kids like maybe less than 10%. I think it's like 7% of the time that where black men are actually single parents. Which I think it should be, there's going to be single parents. I think it should be 50-50. But that's another story. I don't even know if I want to turn on comments on this particular video. I may turn them on for a couple of days and shut them off. You know, I might turn them off for 3 days and just suspend comments, man, because I know this was going to blow up. But this one is just off my chest because I've been sitting on this one for a minute. I've been sitting on this one for 4 years. The sister talked about mommy issues and woman issues. That you always talk about black men, about that you're hurt. That's the reason you're lashing out. But they don't talk about who hurt them or who their mommy was. They only talk about black women when it's good. When it's bad, all of a sudden, mommy issues, they ain't black. There's some alien, like black boys are raised by alien cultures or something like that. And we date and mate with alien women. So if we're hurt, we weren't hurt by black women. We're hurt by them aliens. You just bringing this stuff over and dumping it on black women's laps. Anyway, I've caused enough of a stir. I'm going to drop this here just to piss a few people off. Out of the comments, the links will be in the description. Peruse at your pleasure. And if you get really pissed off, I'll drop the other one. Anyway, this is BGS out, and Sidney Petier will see you on the next one. Peace.